Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode number 2 of BakedHR. I'm Jasmine Wilkes, and this is my co-host, Kristina Minyard. Kristina,
Hello.
what are we talking about today?
So tonight we're going to talk about networking. And so we're going to run through a few different avenues of networking and what that can look like and what that means for whatever phase of your career you're in. So Jasmine, I wanted to kind of start with an easy question. I think it'll be easy. What is the most valuable thing you've gained through networking?
Jobs. What do you mean?
I thought it would be.
Yes. So, really the connections, because without networking and having the connections and meeting the people that I've met, I would not have been able to get these jobs without more work on my part. So I really will say, honestly, having true connections with people and not just going into networking thinking, what can I get from this person or what can I gain? Even though I hate it because I hate small talk, but networking is very valuable. Everyone should know how to use it when they truly do need to be in a room with people.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause this right there for a second because I feel like a lot of times we talk about networking and how everyone should do it, but we don't talk enough about how to do it. And I can remember the first time I met you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even though you don't like small talk, I feel like you went about it the right way. So tell us from your perspective.
Remind me, because I don't remember how we met actually.
Oh, I'm hurt.
I remember seeing you speaking for the first time, but I don't actually remember like when we had our first conversation.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the first time that we actually had a conversation was at a national conference.
Ooh, really, that was the first time? Okay.
Not in that national conference. Yeah, you came into the lounge and introduced yourself. I think that you even said that you had seen me speak when you came into the lounge to introduce yourself.
Okay.
And first, I'm just going to say this. It was absolutely precious because I was like, why in the hell does somebody want to meet me? Like, why does this sweet girl think she needs to come in and introduce herself to me? Like, what can I do for anybody? But you didn't just meet me. You met a lot of other people who were in the line as well. So, and I feel like we've both had this moment at least where we've gone to maybe an event of all of our peers and walked in and thought, oh my gosh, there's like way more people here than I thought, or where do I start? So for that person who's about to go, oh, well, maybe it's COVID, maybe they're not going to an in-person event. So we'll kind of hit it in person and not in person here in a second, but someone who's going to their first in-person event and they might about to be overwhelmed by the amount of people in there, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, you have to breathe. And even if you don't necessarily know anyone in there, the best thing you can do is try to at least know one person. So if you're going to an event, like if you're going to a luncheon, maybe you know someone on the board, or maybe you've met someone in the at the very front when you do the introductions, get your little name tag and all of that. Maybe you tell them up front, hey, I know no one here. Sometimes they will have people there that will help you, which can also be scary. But honestly, you can't get over networking. I don't know. I mean, you can maybe take a shot of something depending on the day or the time of the day. But you just have to breathe through it and make a goal to at least say, hey, I'm gonna talk to 2 people, and then that's it. If that's the most that you feel like you can do for yourself, then just do that. Make that announcement, make that promise to yourself that you'll at least talk to 2 people. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go into deep details about your life. But Just make that promise to yourself. You want to leave knowing you did some good. You didn't just walk into a room and stand in a corner and, not get anything out of it besides high anxiety. What do you think?
I'm sorry, I'm just reliving my high anxiety while we talk about this. Because the very first time I went to an event, and I was young and I was still fairly new. Well, probably about 8 months in or whatever, but I hadn't met a lot of people. And so when I walked into the room of this event I was going to, I actually walked into the front of the room by accident. So I got like a full view of every single person who was in it. It was like 125 people or so.
Okay.
And I was like, oh gosh, I shouldn't be here. I don't belong. I don't know what these people know. And so I took a little different approach. I found a place to sit and I talked with the people right next to me. Another thing that was hard for me is that it was a luncheon and I'm a very picky eater. And it was just like, like conference location chicken, which I don't like chicken at all. So I felt really uncomfortable and awkward in the whole scenario. So to kind of redeem myself, I ended up volunteering like right away. I got a notification that there was a committee or something that could use some help. So I went to their next meeting. And so by plugging into a smaller group within that big network of people, I was able to actually like build some relationships and really actually connect with people, not just in a professional level, but in a personal way too. Some people who I'm still friends with today. One of the ladies has been a career-long mentor for me. So it worked out that I freaked myself out enough to not really mingle and work the room, that I had to force myself to take a different avenue. But definitely through all of that networking is how I have been able to pretty much get all of the jobs that I've had in my career.
Yeah, I've gotten 2 out of my 3 HR jobs have come from networking or knowing people in the field. I do want to pause and tell everyone though, like stop asking people like if they are not eating at an event, it's okay.
Thank you,
Promise
Cass.
you, if they are hungry, they will eat. They'll find something to pick on. But if they're not hungry and they don't want to eat, they just came to see the speaker. Stop asking people about food. Maybe it's a Southern thing. I don't know. But it happens a lot in, our little circles here in Huntsville.
Every single time. And back then, every time I would leave a luncheon, I would go and get like Sonic or some kind of fast food that I actually liked. I know that doesn't sound better than chicken, but I'm a picky eater. I eat like a toddler. Give me
We
some,
know your issues with chicken, so it's okay.
give me good fries.
All right, so we said we were going to talk about actually networking in a sense of now with COVID, we're having online events instead of meeting in person, which I will say maybe last week, actually our local chamber had a networking event online. And it was for young professionals. And so I was like, oh, this will be perfect. And so I went and I signed up for it because it was a free event. It was going to be a happy hour event, which a lot of companies are doing, happy hours with their employees. And so I figured this would be easy peasy. I'll be at home on my own, but still networking. And the day came and I didn't log in. I
Listen,
even online, like networking does terrify me. And so and plus I didn't know the setup of it. I didn't know if like I just log in and then there'd be like a bunch of people, because they were saying it was going to be one that you can actually, talk with other people. And so I didn't know how it was going to be set. And I was just like, you know what? Let's just not do this.
I like how you were confident enough in yourself. You were like, yes, I'm going to sign up for this. And then at the last minute, you're like, no, not for me.
Yeah, I'm very well, with signing up for things and then being like, Oh, you know what? I actually don't think I can do that.
Well, I think it's interesting. I can see why you were like, oh, I don't know the setup. I don't. Maybe it would have been easier if like a friend was signing up too, because then maybe you can at least rely on them. But that kind of defeats the purpose of networking, because then you just kind of like hang out with your friend. And as a matter of fact, like I have a picture of us at that co-working night, like right here. I would move my camera and show it, except for everything would probably fall over. And that's basically what we did that night. We just stuck to each other instead of like meeting a bunch of new people, and we had nothing but cakes. That was delicious. And so I guess the disclaimer is we're not super awesome at networking. We just know you need to be doing it. We're telling you the behind the scenes so that you know that you're not the only one that's not looking forward to networking. So I think, you guys, your group posted a webinar presentation over, I think you guys use the WebEx platform now for the local HR group. And the last one I attended, what I liked is that there was a chat going during the session. And so it wasn't necessarily that we were seeing each other's faces, but we were able to talk to each other about what we're hearing that we really liked from the presenter, or kind of share our own perspective of how that's affected our workplaces. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me, because I can be in my pajamas, which I'm essentially in right now talking to you guys. 2020 is a weird year. But not having to control my face, which I'm not doing with you guys. And then like if I click with somebody who's like telling a story where I'm like, oh yeah, I've experienced that before too, I can easily go look them up on LinkedIn and then connect with them after the event. And still kind of continue that conversation. So there's a little bit of pressure taken off from having to do like the face-to-face stuff. But it still can be nerve-wracking. And I think it's important too to understand you don't have to connect with everyone at every event, or even in that chat dialogue, because I was seeing some comments that maybe didn't really strike a chord with me, like I couldn't really relate to or didn't fully agree with. So I didn't think that was somebody I would have a lot in common with. So didn't seek them out as someone to add to my network. Not that you should only have people who you agree with in your network, but you could still kind of tell someone's vibe. Yeah. And so I think there are still a few different opportunities to network and connect during COVID. So I don't think any of us get to say, oh, we're all taking a gap year on networking. No one network. We just have to be creative and make sure that we're doing a little bit at a time and not waiting until you need something from the network you haven't built yet.
Yeah, that's very big. And we still have conferences going on virtually and in person. We still have events like the one at the chamber going on that are virtual, like meet and greets. So there are plenty of ways. And I do feel like because it's not face-to-face, it can be helpful in many ways to learn how to network right now, because now it's truly about the conversation. You can't necessarily small talk when you're in your home, but when you're in person with someone, you can be like, oh, these meatballs, oh, this room,
This chicken is garbage.
It's really about the conversation that you're having with someone right now, and I feel like that can help you. And it's important to practice for networking, because especially if you are going to an event, maybe, and like if I'm going to an HR event, I want to make sure I know certain things about HR. I want to know exactly what I'm trying to get out of HR, because those are some questions that are going to come up. Oh, hey, what type of HR work have you done? Are you looking for something in a specific area? Sometimes networking is simply asking questions, not because you're trying to find another job or a job to begin with, but sometimes networking is learning who's working in the same area. If you're in benefits and you need to talk to someone else about what's going on in the world of benefits, don't seek out Kristina and I, because we can't help you with them benefits questions.
No, I need you to help me with them. I can't help you.
That's something that you can make note of. You're not just going to say, "Oh, it's time for me to look for a job. My job's getting on my nerve." No, this is a educational event where you can meet someone who can truly help you, maybe understand in a different way than what you were.
Yeah. So, something to note, you definitely have to put something in to get something out. You can't show up because you're tired of your job and you're ready for a new job, because people are going to be like, well, you only came here because you needed something from us. And people get protective of their groups, and people think like, we put a lot of work into this group. We put a lot of work into these programs or events or building relationships. And so that's why that's a turnoff. I think sometimes it can cause groups to be exclusive even when they don't mean to, but it's that's hard to overcome if you do really only show up when you need something. Just think about that person who only calls you when they need something or they need to borrow money or whatever. Like, you dread when the phone rings and it shows their name. So like, that's how people are feeling. So maybe we have a lot of areas to improve, but right now I know that that is what it is. And so you've got to put in some work for people to want to help you. Humans are, just wired a certain way. But also, I think if you don't know where to start, I think the volunteer is like the easiest opportunity, because it's another thing where you can show your work ethic without talking about your work ethic, if that makes sense. You don't have to say yes to everything. In fact, I don't think that you should say yes to everything. I think you should be selective. But when you do something in a volunteer capacity, make sure you do it well. And then people start to build that trust. And then without you even asking, they start referring you for opportunities and such. But it's also, it's the only way I found mentors, because I just can't think of like how I would ever walk up to someone and be like, will you be my mentor? If there was no like networking involved in the beginning of it. Right. But like, not just that, like you said, like if you're looking for somebody who also works in benefits and wants to share benefits with you, because you guys, are trying to figure out a certain problem in benefits. I actually just texted a friend that I used to work with tonight, and I said, hey, I need you to start teaching me everything you know about contracts. I want to learn contracts top to bottom. And she was like, absolutely. And like, that's what she does. And so had I not maintained some kind of relationship with her when we first worked together, then she wouldn't be, just eager to help me if she only hears from me when I need something. So just don't overthink it. Don't try to overcomplicate it. It is what it is. And you can either start building the relationships, or you can try to go at it alone. And there's just too much happening to go at anything alone right now.
Yeah, and I definitely want to go back to that comment you made on volunteering. We could really just have a whole conversation on volunteering, because what you said was so important, and you said it to me maybe a year or two ago, and it still didn't really hit me until this year, where you don't have to say yes to everything. When I got into volunteering with my local chapter, a lot of the times I didn't feel like I had to say yes to everything, but I felt like in order to learn so much, I needed to say yes to everything. And that's just not true. If you truly want to learn something, then the opportunity will be there. But don't like overstress yourself by saying
Maybe we should have a whole conversation on volunteering, because you're right. We can talk about that alone for 20 minutes.
Exactly. So getting back to networking, I also want to talk about networking from a recruiter standpoint. So you worked in recruiting, you love recruiting. And as someone who is, on the lookout for different positions that you're trying to fill, um, how do you go about networking?
So definitely COVID is kind of like derailed some of the things that I would normally do. But what I have focused on more lately, since we're not doing a lot of in-person, is just making sure I'm maintaining relationships that I've already built by checking in with people. So here's the thing, and I'll try to summarize this as briefly as I can. If I have one job open, I am almost always going to interview more than one person for that job. But I am rarely going to hire more than one person for that job. And I say hire as in executing a process for the company that I work for, not actually making hiring decisions. I do not think recruiters own the hiring. We can have a whole different session on that one too. But so I think it's important to stay in touch with those candidates that didn't get that spot. Maybe not from the sense that maybe one day you'll have a spot for them on your team, but you want to make sure that they had a positive experience. And then you want to, I truly am interested in where people end up and how they progress and develop through their career. And so it's easy for me to follow up with people and check in and see where they are and see what they've learned since then. And that just kind of naturally creates an opportunity for people to refer people who they know are looking for work to me. So it happens all the time. Today, I got 3 different resumes from people who I have tried to recruit in the past, and for one reason or another, they ended up not working for the company that I was recruiting for, who had such a good experience with me that now that they know somebody else in their network who's looking or will be looking soon, they're sending those resumes to me. So it's just a matter of, I think, treating people like humans. I don't know,
So hard.
simplify
So
that.
difficult.
But really it can be that simple. Also, other managers who I've worked with in the past, when they move on, I kind of track where they go. And then kind of sometimes when I need to maybe give someone, this happened recently, I reached out to a former department manager. We both worked at the same company. He's at a different company now. I'm obviously at a different company now, but he is like a SME in his area. And so I reached out to him to ask for advice for someone who's developing their career where I am now. And he gave me some really good advice. And then he was like, oh, I didn't realize that you guys did some work in this area. Here's a resume of somebody else who might be a good addition to the team. And so it just like naturally happened. I don't ask for it. It just comes up when you have the conversation. So you have to actually talk to people, which, if you know me, I am an introvert. A lot of people are surprised by that. My husband, not so much, because when I come home, like I shut down. I don't want to talk anymore. Believe it or not, I don't want to talk anymore because I spend so much of my time talking to people. Like I'm fully drained when I get home. But it's just about the follow-up. Now, when we can all see each other in person, that means that I will go to events outside of my area. I will focus on events that are catered to the kind of talent that I'm looking to recruit, but know that you cannot show up to one of these events and have nothing to offer the people at the events. Because if you're only there to take, just like if you only came to, an HR event because you're tired of your boss and you're ready to look for that next role, people are going to be put off by that. People are going to be put off by that too. If I'm the recruiter who shows up to their, hackathon without having any value for that event. So sometimes it might just be like, I find a way to volunteer for the event. Maybe I find a way to get our company to sponsor something and I just kind of hang out to meet people, not get in the way. Or I have taken technical classes in the past to meet people in the technical field already. So An example of that is when a SME in an area that I was having a hard time filling was teaching an introductory class in their area for UAV systems. I signed up to take the class so that I could start building a relationship. So, and also learn a little bit more of the language and kind of the foundation of that skill set. So you just have to, it's a hands-on, always, you know, with all these tools that we have, like social media wise and stuff, it's so much easier to keep the conversation going. So, you know, maybe put a reminder on your calendar, 6 months from now, check in with so-and-so. You don't need to check in with everyone every 2 weeks, but sometimes it takes, you know, years to recruit somebody. So I've always had that habit of doing that follow-up consistently.
Which I think a lot of people respect, because, you know, with the issue of hiring, a lot of people are saying, hey, we're not hearing back from recruiters. You know, do you want me on this job? Are you entertaining other candidates? Like, am I even still in the running for this position? So I feel like the follow-up is always worth it. I know people are busy, but I feel like the follow-up is always worth it. And, you know, like you said, just networking to meet people, which social media did. It was a lot. Social media is a lot, but you can meet great people on social media, and that's how going to conferences I was okay in certain ways, because although I didn't know people actually, like, I've never met them face to face yet, being able to know that I met them on social media, and so I had someone to look forward to meeting at said conference,
Yeah.
made it a little bit easier. And then they introduced me to other people, which kept growing my network. And so, you know, that's, social media can be very, I don't know, would you say social media is important to a career?
So I have kind of mixed feelings about this, right? Because, you know, we talked to our lawyer friend, I won't drop any names, but, you know, we talk about, you know, looking at social media profiles. And I think there's a time to look at social media profiles and there's a time not to. But
Don't be stalkery on LinkedIn. Don't be.
oh, it's weird. But I will say this as a recruiter, sometimes I go look at profiles because I know it will tell them I looked at their profile. So they'll come back and look at my profile to learn about where I work in
I've
hopes
done that before.
sometimes. So it's worked for me before. So sometimes when I'm crunched for time and I can only reach out to so many people, I do that. I think that social media can be a very useful tool for your career. But if you're not good at social media, or if you think that you have to get on social media and be someone different than who you are, then it's probably not a great tool for you to leverage. And so, you know, back to the, you know, looking at profiles and not looking at profiles. I've had several jobs and good jobs with good people, but if they looked too long at my social media, they would realize that we have some very different values. And they probably wouldn't appreciate the difference in our beliefs and values. And so I just feel like it can go either way. It can open the door for a lot of growth, a lot of learning opportunities, a way to, I mean, I would not have a global network without social media, for sure. But I do think we're in a very dark place with social media right now. And it's super hard to stay connected to social media for in my experience today, just where I am. It's very hard to leverage that for the career path right now when, you know, we're using it to get vital information that is not super encouraging right now.
Yeah.
And so social media can kind of be a dark place right now, but there's a lot of good to be had in social media. So you should take over this question because I am stumbling, tripping. I've stubbed every one of my toes on this question. What do you think? Social media good for the career? Useful, important, necessary, or no?
I don't think it's necessary. I think you can learn a lot from social media. You can meet great people on social media. You can meet people that you never want to talk to again in your life on social media. But but you can do all of those things, without it, if you want, if you are willing to make that effort. Now
Yeah.
you have to understand that nowadays, because of what social media is, more people will be like, oh, hey, even at conferences, no longer is there the business card. Now it's, what's your LinkedIn, or let's connect on LinkedIn and, share our little codes or whatever. So a lot more people are moving towards that. Well, it's social media, a lot more people are there. But if you want to be someone that's not really big on social media, or if you just want to, if LinkedIn is your only platform that you say you want to reach out to people with, then that's fine. Don't feel like it's necessary to go off and have an Instagram or have a Twitter or have a blog. Like, you don't have to do these things. We're just crazy, and so we got these.
Yeah, no, some of the early advice I got, because there's been several platforms that have, been presented and have, I think, fizzled out, or maybe I just never, jumped into, but
I wonder what HR MySpace would look like. Like,
oh my gosh. And if I could rank all of my HR friends, like
yes.
HR friends, oh, I think I would change that very often. Jasmine, you'd be my number one HR friend, though. Don't worry. So I want to touch on one more thing. You said it can introduce you to people that you never want to talk to again.
Yes.
So I want to go down that path for 1 second. I want to talk about
path, Kristina.
No, wait. I've got good parameters. So we'll do this in person and online.
Okay.
So what do you do if you're at a networking event, no matter what your goal is at this networking event? What do you do if you're at this networking event and you have met somebody and you're chatting with them? Maybe it's small talk, maybe you're starting to get into the career stuff, but it is just going south. Like, it is bad, about to get worse. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that situation?
I will normally, because I'm a fast talker, like in most situations. So normally I will steer the conversation in a whole nother direction and then be like, oh, I need to go get something else to drink, or I need to go use the restroom. I would like some more meatballs.
You're like, remember those meatballs? I'll be right back.
So, yeah, I try to get out, because so my thing is, I do have a face that will tell you what I am thinking. So if it's going south, you will probably tell, like, I'll give you a look and be like, what exactly are you saying?
I feel like you see that face a lot. Wait a minute, time out.
But yeah, I will try to get out. I mean, if there's nothing else to be learned from the conversation, because you can be having a conversation with someone and it can be difficult, because maybe you don't necessarily have the same beliefs or ideas, and it doesn't have to be political, it doesn't have to be church, it doesn't have to be anything like that. If you all are just having maybe two different ideas of the way something works, then sometimes you can hear them out to understand them. But if it's a bad conversation and it's getting worse, then yeah, I just try to find somewhere else to go.
Okay, so I'm going to throw another layer on top of that. How can you tell what the risk is to your network building by getting out of that conversation. Because let's say the person that you are having this one-on-one with and it's going south and you are like, oh my gosh, I've got to redirect. What if this is like the person to know at that event? Are you risking networking with anyone else in the room by dodging this person and headed back to the meatballs?
No, I don't think so. I think you can feel like you may be like, say that person works at a company that you want to work for. You may feel like you are risking that, but you can always go around and find someone else. Maybe that person's the owner. Then I don't know what to tell you, because if y'all can't have a conversation without it going south. And it be something that you're both passionate about.
Yeah.
If it's nothing that actually, like, if this is a place you want to work, if it's nothing affecting the work, then okay. Because there are a lot of people that I've worked with that I don't have things in common with. I don't believe in the same things that they believe. But I'm the type of person that I'm coming to work to do my job, and then that's it. Like, that's all you're gonna get out of me. If that's the situation. So I don't know. What do you think?
Right. I was just thinking, like, I don't know why this is where my mind goes, but when people say that, like, about I'm just going to come to work and I'm going to do my job, for some reason potlucks pop into my mind.
No.
I'm like, oh, so you don't want to go to the family potluck?
No.
We got to cut that out. We got to edit that out. Yes. And I'm not a fan of potlucks. I don't know your house. I don't need to be eating people's food. I like, whatever. Anyway. Okay. So in person, that this might be an aspect of networking that's easier to handle in person than online. Because how would you handle that situation online? Whether you're in a one-on-one conversation or, a lot of times we have conversations on Twitter that just like everybody who follows us can see it. Or maybe like the example I gave earlier where you're attending an event and there's an open public chat room for all of the attendees. Like how do you redirect in one of those scenarios?
Well, I will say, and I was thinking, because I was like, oh, she's going to ask me about this actually online too. But, for me, because of the type of person I am, with Twitter, I'm just going to send you a gift that's just like, okay, and then continue on about my day. We don't have to have any more conversation.
Yeah.
With the chat, like a chat room situation, you don't have to, you can politely say, well, maybe those are your beliefs. These, I've said my piece. It doesn't have to go to a place of it being like rude or nasty. Like, I think that's one of the hardest things, is that a lot of people don't know how to have conversations. And sometimes in conversations, you find things that you don't agree with, and that's completely okay. But just move on to the next thing. It's harder if someone is sitting there and like constantly poking you about that situation.
Yeah.
Then it's when you have to truly address it. But if you can just get out of it by saying, oh, well, now the speaker is talking about this topic, so what do you think about this one? Then to me, that's the best thing to do. There are certain situations, like I said, that maybe you do need to speak up a little bit more about things, but sometimes, and a lot of the times, you can just be like, okay, that's your belief, next.
Yeah. So I want to point out that your advice did not include ghosting anyone, because I think that that's an easy way out. Like we can all just be like, oh, well, we'll just never have to respond again. But I think that we will go back to a time where we have in-person networking and people will remember that you ghosted them. So I'm glad you did not give that advice, because sometimes people deserve it, but it's rarely the mature thing to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, if I feel like I mean, I don't know, ghosting is I know it's really big. It's one of the things that everyone wants to blame the millennials for, but you don't have to have a
My
relationship,
avocado.
huh?
As I'm just minding my business, eating my avocado. It's not, ghosting is not my fault.
Gosh. But you don't have to have a conversation or a relationship with every person that you meet. It can
Yeah.
literally be a hi and bye, and that's it. Um, I don't know. I don't really think ghosting would be the correct thing to do. Unless, like I said, you've already said, I'm no longer talking about this, and then they come back at you, then, don't respond. That's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Because we're talking in the sense of like we're just maybe not vibing or not, we don't have the same perspective of maybe the HR function or whatever. We're not talking about people being like hateful
yeah,
or disrespectful. We're just talking about like this is not a good connection for me.
yeah.
Because I think advice for when someone comes sideways is completely different, and we can just we can handle that later. You email us if someone's coming at you sideways over something important. Just email us. We got
We can tell you a lot of ways to handle that. But yeah, so networking is important. Networking can lead you to great friendships. Networking can lead you to great places in your career, even if it's not, a job, if it's just knowing the right people, if it's being able to, hey, if someone has a connection at, like the Trash Panda Stadium, and I want to go and tour it without having everyone else there, maybe I know someone. That's a connection. That's, I'm getting to do something for fun. um so I think everyone needs to learn and know how to network for them. Know that you don't have to attend every event. You don't have to be the life of the party at everything. Like I said at the very beginning, if you go and make a promise to yourself that you will speak to two people and maybe, ask them a question about what they're currently doing, then if that's all you can do, that's all you can do. Networking isn't easy. So I definitely understand that. What do you think are some lasting tips for networking?
So definitely give yourself some grace. Don't think that you have to roll in and get it perfect the first time, because I think that for those of us who have anxiety, like we can get ourselves worked up and think, oh my God, we blew it. I can never like go back to that group again or whatever it was. So definitely give yourself some grace. I think if you peel back the layers and you start talking to more and more people, you'll find that a lot of people are nervous about networking. Even people who are really good at it sometimes are nervous about networking. And just be yourself, because it's not worth it to have to like present a different uh, persona at these events. Like I think that I have been able to really let some really good people into my network just by being myself. And that means that I have to know going into something, whether it's for fun or for work or, for my own personal growth or whatever, that not everyone is gonna like me. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So I'm not interested in being everyone's cup of tea. But like I have to know that up front, right? I have to know I'm not going into networking to find my value or to find my own worth. Like I define that on my own before we even get into something like that. So I think that I have a really hard separation with that, and I don't have an issue with that. But I think that there was probably a time where I would have been discouraged in networking to think, oh my gosh, that person didn't like me. I don't know why they didn't like me. You just have to know that you're not for everyone, but you can be yourself and just accept that fact.
And I definitely want to remind people that, especially in smaller circles, people do talk. And so,
That's
if
true.
you're going out and having 5 different personas, people are going to start realizing that, oh, you're like this with somebody, you're like this with somebody else, you're, saying these other things. It's just, you have to be fine with who you are. Don't let what you think someone wants you to be turn you into who you try to become, to get into this career field, or any career field at that.
And I will say this one last thing, just be kind. Even if you realize like you aren't gonna maybe keep this person's not really gonna be a part of your long-term network or whatever, I think you can be professional and kind and still avoid that, because to your point that people talk, if Jasmine knows that Kristina is not her people, and so she just blows her off, and then she goes and interviews with a company, and my best friend is the HR manager, and she knows about how you treated me, she's going to be like, oh no, we don't want to bring someone like that on our team, because they're going to see that as how you treat people, not necessarily how you treated Kristina.
Mm-hmm.
So kind.
So yes, be kind. Unless they get crazy, then look if you buck.
If they get sideways, we're having a different conversation, okay? This is assuming everything is like professional and everything's okay, okay? But now we got to stop recording before I say something I shouldn't say.
All right, y'all. So thank you again for joining us for episode 2 of BakedHR. As you can tell, we're just coming here to talk to y'all about certain things that we've seen, over the years in HR, to help you all out. If you have questions, if you have something that you want to talk about, or you want us to talk about, or if you want to join us on BakedHR, then email us at bakedhr@gmail.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram at BakedHR. Until next time, Kristina.
Bye.